with us. In the upcoming, let's say, 1.5 hours, we are about to conclude the first day of Metaforum X. So the last panel, titled Technopolitics of Planetary Computation and Beyond, is a kind of attempt to scale up the discourse and let's say the focality of what we have been talking throughout the whole days. And we have three amazing presenters joining us who will try to unfold the topics throughout their own researches and projects. The first presenters will be Hordós Boldizsár, who earned his master's degree from the Hungarian University of Fine Arts in 2016. Boldizsár is also currently enrolled as a PhD student at the Academy of Fine Arts here in Budapest, and he also teaches computer history in intermedia department, amongst other things. So without further ado, Boldizsár, please, the stage is yours.
Could we switch off that light? Like that one? I think it's not bad. You don't see me really. So, hi, Flora asked me to do this about the crisis, and I think it's a very good sign of our desperate situation that I am allowed to talk here, despite being a lazy idiot. That doesn't mean by any chance that I don't have a deep admiration towards my own thoughts, but my friends stopped asking me questions, so now you have to suffer. I will make this presentation about the stuff I make and I read. I'm not a proper academic, I don't publish that many papers, but I like to fidget around, and you can see some of my stuff on the table and on the presentation screen there. Our title is Naked Logic, which is like connected to computational theory. I think that could be the most boring stuff that you can study. That's why I chose it in the first hand. Maybe it won't be that boring after all, but I will let you decide. Yeah, I'm also a teacher, by the way, and I work with small kids, so I have to tear out the phones of their little hands, and they don't really like it. Phones make them crazy. And well, basically, algorithmic society, adaptive algorithms, and behavior modification tend to make people crazy. Which also makes people crazy is this very strong message that they are not needed. They are replaceable easily with either robots or programs, and so on and so on. I'm not really interested in that part. I'm interested in the connection between the human mind, human agency, and programs and computers, because they seem to be, well, not a clear, but a very strong connection between those two terms or empires, we should say. And it wasn't very self-evident for me why it should be like that. Why are we comparing human beings or minds or brains to computers and vice versa? Why are we creating or why are we promoting systems that should be artificial intelligence or resemble intelligence in any way? And that history is actually quite long and old. It dates back to the 16th century, but I won't torture you with the whole of it. I have just a few guesses why should we talk about even AI at the first hand, and well, I wanted to start with the most boring one and then scaling up to the more interesting points, at least interesting to me. The first would be that it's all a marketing scam to sell underdeveloped products to the military, to the investors, blah blah blah. I think that part is well covered in the press. Maybe not enough. It also could be that it's part of a longer technocratic history or a technocratic philosophy or thought when we are modeling, making models out of everything, and such complicated issues as well as human cognition. And in that history, we tend to use the latest inventions and technologies as the perfect models for human beings or living beings. So when the steam engine was the top thing imaginable, we used to talk about human activity as a steam-powered something. We still see that in terms in suppression, sublimation, or this terminology used by Sigmund Freud. AI can be also seen as a modern secular version of a mystical tradition. I think we shouldn't take that point very lightly. There's a kind of latent but very strong undercurrent during the Enlightenment to make something very, very abstracted from reality, or imagine reality itself, which is divided into regimes, divided into mind or body, divided into nature and culture. Bruno Latour talked about that stuff quite extensively. Well, actually, that part is really old. Like Descartes started with this speculation that we should imagine the whole world as a computer, like something which is separated into hardware and software, so to say, when the natural laws are outside and external to the world, and they somehow manipulate inert, unliving matter, well, ourselves as well. And the last point is the most interesting for me. It's my subjective point that maybe the case is that our thinking and our thoughts are not really closed inside our skulls, that human activity and enacted thought already makes something like an artificial intelligence. Not artificial intelligence in the technocratic sense, but artificiality and thinking instead of thinking. I'm trying to make projects and texts along that latest one. The funny point is, if we try to make enough web description on computation, we are in a quite hard task. Professionals and IT people do not really agree on a good enough definition. We don't really know what should we say about computation. Most of the time it's something like data or information processing, and there's a strong tradition with cybernetic models which are more focused on automation and things that do things on their own without any living context or human concept in the background, or just maybe at the starting point. So for the technocratic visions, we tend to talk about very human and very complex phenomena along these informational or computer-related terms, like gaining information. When we are talking or seeing someone or getting into a new situation, we are basically machines, like operating symbols and representations in our minds. It's not that easy to work with that model, actually. So I was trying to make another model or another description or starting point for human activity and computation, and you can find traces of something like an automated system in the world dating back to the prehistoric times. These are desert traps in the Black Desert in Jordan. They are basically huge mazes which are in the way of big herds of animals, and they move them into these small gardens or enclosed spaces when they are murdered and killed. And also for this base level or zero level computation, we can imagine animal traps or anything which, any object which is not really in the present and just there. If you think about it like a trap or anything that something changes through time, or changes its shape, or reacts to something in the future, some part of that object, like it's in another time. It's not really with us right now, but that part don't have to be a representation in anyone's mind. It doesn't have to be a plan or a description or an algorithm like we use computation nowadays. And the human being is not the only creature who, well, not plans, but changes its environment quite steadily and quite powerfully. Not just beavers, but many animals and plants interact with their environment in a very complex way, which can be like a two-channel activity, not just an evolutionary algorithm doing its work in an environment, but the environment itself changes by the animal or the plant. So some of this stuff is like leaning towards biology and sociology, but I won't confuse you with like, I don't know, easy speculations about that. So let's jump forward. That would be my baseline description or definition for zero-level computation. Something that goes non-randomly in a dynamic medium. The dynamic medium can be like a flow of air, a river, or really these herds of animals that move along in the desert. And within that flow and within that medium and dynamic change, some structures can appear or ordain things within that change. And some of those can be extended towards longer and longer time periods. And when we do these chains of events or casualties, then no, nothing. So when we make these chains, we can actually make something like a machine, something like a computer. But it doesn't have to be like a symbol processing or a data processing one. I know it might seem a bit abstract, but I try to collect some stuff that is related to this. These are very, very simple, we should say biological robots, not exactly. These are small strings of wooden strings that are trying to get the seed into the ground. Existing plants do this simple trick as well. When the rain starts to pour, it gets wet and it changes its structure, and it will like spin into the earth. There's a whole research behind that. You can watch it out. Also, there's an ongoing research to kind of change our thinking about a natural process and a cultural one or an artificial one. With these small xenobots of Michael Levin and his team, life takes really interesting and other forms. Really phases between life and non-life. So these whole categories and whole realms seem to, well, not collapse, but to change into something else. My thinking was that I really like to do stuff and make stuff and build stuff, and I try to find a form or a toolkit which could help me to deal with this matter, this computational theme. And I found not just the small animals at the left, but a very easy, like a function board, which is called logic gate research. At the table you can see logic gates as well. I think I will hand it to you. I will tell you about that in a minute. These logic gates are basically small streets or labyrinths within a space, and they make our computational work or our logic work better, or they help us in many ways. They were actually, I wouldn't say made, but created, discovered. They were discovered by George Boole in the 19th century. Boole actually tried to formalize logic, formalize thinking about thinking. And he made these small functions which get two or more inputs and one output. The output is the right side and input usually depicted on the left. The working is very simple and the logic is very simple because it was made to be so. Basically, it's the very elemental, very simple and primitive building block of any digital system that you use or reuse. In your phones and in your computers, you have these logic gates and structures in billions and billions. In your hand, that small table which is going around, there are just 4 or 5. And in the 60s, there was an alternative paradigm when they tried to make computers with very crude materials, and instead of using electricity, they tried to use flows of air or fluid. That's why it's called fluidics. The USA and the USSR really liked this area for a while. Then they ditched it, but nevertheless, it went on for quite a time. What was the result of this research are those small silhouettes that you can see at the bottom right corner. These are really just ways to carve something, anything which is hard enough to contain a stream of air or a stream of a fluid like water inside it. And in these small mazes and small labyrinths, the airflow works the same way as the electricity works in your phones and in your computers. It's just a bit slower. These machines tend to be way bigger. It's a bit harder to miniaturize them. But the overall logic and overall working of the system is the same. So that's a digital small circuit, and these are can be digital machines as well. I started to draw stuff about that. The funny part is that this form right here, for example, it's not a representation of something, it's not a depiction of a function, it's the function itself. It's a form that computes, and if you link these forms in a chain, or link these forms in a bit more sophisticated circuit, you can make pretty weird stuff resembling anything that you can do with a computer. Yeah, you can see the silhouette here. My obvious way was to just use these silhouettes themselves and make something very minimalistic and nice and clean, but I wanted to go to the other direction to make big, glowing drawings, digital drawings by my mouse and Photoshop, and not using any blurry effects, just a very simple, very crude skill set that it offers. I made light boxes out of them, actually. And after a while, I tried to make them in real life. The funny part is that they seem to work the same way like our computers work, but the flexibility is different. So you don't have to use these circuits and systems as a way of symbol processing or data processing or digital computing. You can use these as just an organ or just an instrument, just a tool which breathes air the same way as we breathe air. It changes its volume. It changes its form. You don't have to make a program. You don't have to write anything resembling a symbolic code or a description. Yeah, I say these are very primitive, but they are not easy to make. My goal was to do everything on my own, so don't use any programs. Do everything by hand. It sucks. It really sucks. Epoxy itself is a bad medium, but nevertheless, I tried to make it happen, and it can work. It's quite resilient. So my plan is to make them a bit more sophisticated and make these circuits, these logical elements, do stuff. to react to their surroundings. So you can like change their form, you can make the music with them, you can record a memory or record a code with them or within them. And I think this technology's most interesting aspect is big passive systems. So instead of like putting like the opposite of the Internet of Things, instead of doing computational work on top of existing layers of reality, you can modify a building or the form of something that it can do computation on its own. So it computes, not computational or algorithmic design that we are so used to. Yeah. So the overall plan, or I think the most interesting application would be passive systems which use the environment itself, the changing medium and its flows and accidents as events. So we don't have to create like power plants. We don't have to create specific situations like this. We don't have to switch on lights. We don't have to charge a computer or a phone. We have to just form something. Like we have to give a geometry of to something, and it will work. It will change. There are some practical applications as well. Fluidics is widely used in diagnostics and like some specific niche construction ways, but it can actually serve people. It can change the shape and the structure of clothing or design or object design more broadly. Yeah, these are points. And the ending note would be just to really underline this thought that we should be a bit more suspicious of these metaphors between machines and people. We are keep making things. We are keep stepping into mysticism and keep stepping into politics, but that's not bad on its own. But maybe we can do it in another way. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.